Welcome everyone to yet another episode of the SDN Community Voices, our weekly touchpoint between you, the members and followers of the Service Design Network, and all the amazing voices we have in this big community. My name is Felipe, and as always, I will be your ambassador and host. And today we have a very special episode. We have both the president and vice president of the Service Design Network joining us today to answer all your questions. So it's all about you wanting to know more about us. So feel free to drop questions as per usual. We're going to have a little bit of a bigger Q&A this time. So drop questions in the chat while we are here, anything you want to ask. But first, I'll bring Birgit in and ask her to introduce herself. Hey, welcome.
Hey, Felipe. Hey, everybody. Lovely to see you. And thanks for having me. My name is Birgit Mager, and I'm professor for service design at the Technical University in Cologne, Germany. I've been teaching service design for 30 years now. And so I guess I was the very first professor ever with an official role as a service design professor. And I'm also the co-founder of the Global Service Design Network. And I have to say, it was maybe because it was getting a bit lonely to be the only professor worldwide. I felt there's a huge need to bring together people that are working in the same direction, trying to understand how do we design for experiences, how do we design for living systems, how do we design for relationships between users and organizations. So the Service Design Network was founded in 2004 in its very first constellation of pioneers. And in 2008, we made it official. There was then the way to become a member of the Service Design Network, and by becoming a member to show that you support the discipline, that you want to, make it grow, make it impactful. So membership was really about joining a community of like-minded people to strengthen the praxis and the theory development. And in 2008, we also had the very first ever global conference. And since then, we've been doing many things. We're publishing Touchpoint. We're organizing conferences every year. We have an academy now for already 6 years, 7 years. We have a service design award, and it is all volunteer driven. We have volunteers like Felipe and Brian, who will probably join a little bit later. I would say we have around 150 volunteers worldwide doing all these amazing things, organizing events, facilitating chapters, helping to publish Touchpoint. And we have a tiny little headquarter here in Cologne, Germany, with 6 people, partially in a full-time position, partially in a part-time position, who are keeping the threads together and trying to strengthen our back so that the volunteers can do their work.
Yeah, I mean, it's safe to say that nowadays you're not the only professor in service design also. So that definitely helped. And I also bring Brian in and ask, hey, Brian, please introduce yourself.
Good morning. Sorry I'm late. I got the times a little bit confused.
Oh, good. So to the audience, can you introduce yourself pretty quickly?
Absolutely, yes. So my name is Brian Gillespie. I am on the leadership team for the Service Design Network since about 2017. Apart from that, I'm an occasional consultant in the area of strategic design. The specific design practices that I've always worked in are user experience design and service design. I teach occasionally also via an agency in Europe called PARC, and I teach a course on service design management, particularly with the focus on product service systems. When it comes to the Service Design Network, as I said, in 2017, I ran a poll with members asking members, why did you become a member of the Service Design Network? And the vast majority of them said, I joined to learn from the experience of others. And it's a really important statement, right? So it gave me sort of a inspiration and marching orders, I suppose, to sort of think about what can we do to support people as they learn from the experience of others. I asked folks, well, how do you typically learn from the experience of others? And one of the most common answers was case studies. And so it's a kind of an expected answer, right? Case studies would be the answer that you would expect. And so, you know, we have since then tried to find out many ways that we can sort of, I guess, engage with the community on how to learn from the experience of others. And one of them, obviously, is what you, Felipe, are doing here with the community sessions, where we engage with members, we hear their stories, they tell stories about what they're doing and how they're doing it. We're doing it through the Global Cafe, where we're bringing in folks who have shown, you know, throughout their life and life's work, amazing things that they're doing in service design. And of course, we've been doing it constantly through the evolution of the case study library on the website. So I think that for me is a really important thing to always consider. It sort of drives me forward, is how do we continually help each other learn from each other's experience?
Yeah, it's definitely very community driven. As Birgit said, there's just this big team of volunteering people behind SDN, and there's also just the amazing people all around the world that call themselves service designers or work with service design. And as you said, Brian, they're just there trying to learn from each other. And I think that's such a powerful place to be honest, because you really have the space to share all of the things you went through, the learnings and everything like that,
Yeah.
but also be humbled and learn from other people that maybe have different experiences culturally, in different contexts, different areas, right? Service designers, we also work in so many different areas.
Well, this is it. And there's one thing I'd just like to add to it, is that the only way we can learn from the experience of each other is by sharing that experience. And so we're not always able to, or we're reluctant to, or sometimes we're passive receivers of it, but we need to be active givers of it as well. And as many times as we can on the network, we try to provide those platforms for folks to give, whether it's to write an article for Touchpoint, or to document a case study of the work that you're doing. You know, you really do. You as a member will, you know, gain so much more from your membership if you're able to sort of make it a two-way transaction here, a two-way knowledge transaction, if you will.
Yeah, if little by little everybody puts something out, right, then it starts
Exactly.
building up. It becomes this snowball effect that the things are just growing and growing, and the knowledge is growing with everyone. So, but that's interesting actually, because for me, I think both of you have a little bit of this foot in academia, and academia is quite a lot on this, on sharing knowledge and building on everybody's knowledge. Do you think that was something that you brought a little bit from academia? Because sometimes on the professional side, companies, private companies, they're very much more closed, not sharing, not extending so much the knowledge. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I would not necessarily connect that to academia. I think it has to do with the mindset of people that are intrigued by the idea of service design. I think the people that are part of our community are usually very curious, very experimental, very open-minded. They love to share, they love to connect. And I can just sense that for 18 years now, when we have our global conference, it is such a wave of energy. It's such a warm atmosphere of people who love to connect, who love to share, who love to support each other. And it's different from many other communities I know that are, let's say, more competitive, more isolated. And I think it's the mindset of these people that are intrigued by service design that make this community so special.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is that service design is such a dynamic design practice. And when I say dynamic, I mean it's constantly evolving. You cannot rest on the knowledge that you had a year ago. You have to constantly be updating and keeping your knowledge fresh. And then certainly over the last 2 years, you know, how AI has influenced the growth of the practice and the development of the practice in terms of enhancing our tool sets is an example of that. You can't, it's not like we're carpenters with a hammer and a nail and we just bang that in for the next 30 years, right? So you have to be able to be open to that knowledge in order to be able to, I think, succeed as a service design professional and to continue to succeed as one.
Yeah, I think the term curiosity really describes it very well, as Birgit was saying, right?
Right.
And then to kind of tie it with the global conference, as you're mentioning, right? That's one of the biggest events we have in the Service Design Network. And this year we're going back to the US. We're going to Dallas. Why is that? Why Dallas?
Well, first of all, because Dallas has a really active and successful service design community. I think they really, popped up during Corona, starting to organize these online meetings, and suddenly they had up to 6,000 people from all over the world joining their events. And the volunteers in Dallas are really dedicated to creating really valuable content and to bring the community together. So when they applied as a host city for the global conference, it was as if, the conference needs to go to Dallas just to help also spreading the word of service design in the United States. Nowadays, I think the doors are wide open. We have been to the United States several times throughout the last decades. We were in San Francisco, we were in New York, we were in Boston. But there we were always a bit like underneath the shadow of the customer experience community. And it seems that now the doors are wide open for service design. And yes, we felt that we need to take advantage of that opportunity. And then, of course, this all happens during the summer last year. And we signed contracts. We have venues that are amazing. We will be in the Toyota Music Factory. So it's an amazing event in an amazing venue. And then, of course, we did face some political turbulences and are still facing those. And I can see that there are people saying, well, we don't want to travel to the United States and this is not the right place to be. I can understand the concerns, but I have to say we are at the right place because the United States still has more than 50% of people who are true Democrats. And I think it's getting more and more again. And I would also say that our community is an absolutely diverse, equity and inclusion-oriented community with a really, truly participatory mindset and a very empathetic way of accepting diversity within different groups. So I think we cannot turn our back on that amazing community just because politics are playing crazy stuff right now. We are there to stand behind and with our American friends and to say this, that we believe in democracy and we believe that this is an episode that will pass and America will be truly in the community and the family of friends and
and I think definitely on these spaces of turmoil, being political, cultural, whatever it is, you always can learn a lot from maybe people that are really pushing through and learning and trying to go around and learn how to really innovate and work with service design or other really innovative driven professions through this turmoil, right?
Yeah, and I'd also like to mention, one of our leadership team members, Greg Lecloufie, of course, is the one who's led the charge with the Dallas chapter. We all became aware of him during the COVID epidemic when he ran global chapter meetups with hundreds of people joining online. So in many regards, the work that he and they did during that period was not about being a local Dallas chapter. It was about being a global chapter. So the spirit of that chapter is global. It's not local. It's not, the sort of sometimes strange news we hear coming from Texas. It is very much a global perspective. And recently, so I'm going to say later in June, Greg is going to be a guest on our SDN Global Cafe. And what I'm asking him to share on that, recently he gave this presentation to the students at SCAD that he called geostrategic design. And it's a fascinating concept. And one of his slides is just 4 words: rising design above politics. And so he talks about this perspective about what we as designers, particularly service designers, need to consider as we design for the future. And I won't go into it too deeply right now, but I highly encourage you to sign up when we post this meetup in mid-June. It's a fascinating and really challenging, provocative argument, this notion of geostrategic design. It involves, not just simply designing and solving individual user problems, but really starting to shift more into very grand systemic problems. And where we're challenged to become more strategists, interpreters, diplomats, guides, various different characteristics that we're maybe not used to growing and possessing as service designers that we're going to need to have. And hopefully the conversations in Dallas, bringing it back to the global conference, will help us with that. And Greg will help provoke that. And like you said, Birgit, the energy at these conferences can be really powerful. And maybe the one in Dallas is going to be one that's going to be a sea change.
It's going to be unforgettable. And just, it's not a sales pitch here, but early bird tickets are available until end of May. So make sure to grab your early bird ticket with a really relevant discount.
Yeah, 100%. And now we start shifting a little bit to ask you guys if you have any question. People that are listening to us right now, we'll answer them live. We're going to have a large portion of this episode as a Q&A. We also already have some questions from Instagram that we got beforehand. So we can go for those first while we're getting some other questions from the audience. So first we have a question here from @RA Vasquez. What is the next frontier for service design?
Well, I might give it a take. And I think service design has really gained maturity throughout the last 30 years, I can say. And it's just a new normal. It's an accepted practice. And it has been also absorbed by other disciplines like marketing or innovation or product management. So service design has been really contributing to the way other disciplines work. And I think what the next frontier for service design is to build bridges and make sure that we join forces with those other disciplines who work for innovation within service systems. And I'm right now reaching out to the service marketing community and the community for service innovation. And I think we need to trigger these conversations and make sure that we are aware of each other and that we are aware of our shared interests and also aware of our different capacities and competencies that we bring into the system. The latest issue of Touchpoint was about service design and product management. And in case you have not yet read it, I can highly recommend to look at it, because if we are not aware of what other disciplines within the organizations are doing, we are missing out on the opportunity in joining forces. So I think that is one of the frontiers, to have a seat at the table and be proud and self-confident, but also partner with our colleagues and make sure that we work into the same direction.
We have us, Brian, if you want to add anything.
No, I'll leave it at that. Let's have more questions.
Yes, we have one here from @Samira Tufanias. How to keep doing service design in an environment that is not mature for design? So it seems all it's against it.
Well, I'd like to answer that one. One of the things that I feel, we sometimes think that companies are not ready for design and design is not ready for companies. Because it's very difficult to find synergy right at the right time, right? And so, I've been doing some work with the product service system community, those who are looking into the servitization of products, right? Developing new services and new value with customers through products. And it's a new area for them, right? They typically have a very product-centric approach to developing it, and they actually call it product design for services. They don't call it service design for products. And so what I've seen is that as they go through the process of change, right, of setting up the business model, of putting together a pilot program, of measuring the success of the program, of scaling from there, we as service designers need to be inserting ourselves at the right time in that process. So when companies are developing new business models, we should be there to support them with customer research. helping them provide the evidence. We should be helping with competitive analysis and review, helping to differentiate that service and that business model. We should be there to help develop and test and prototype the pilot programs that they're looking to see. So what I argue is that it really is about being in the right place at the right time, offering the right value at the right time, and always proving that value. To me, that synergy is super important. Otherwise, I think, it's no good coming into a company who's really mature in a certain way with us at a very one simple designer. It's really about finding the right project to get traction in and to be able to galvanize an entire team. And theoretically, the previous question about what are the new frontiers? Well, sometimes the old frontiers still haven't been achieved yet. We still sort of we take on so much, and sometimes I think it's the simple things like getting traction for service design within a company is still the new frontier for many folks, right? Without looking ahead with into the bright new future, what are we doing today with what we have is super important.
Yeah, I would like to add something. I think in the end, the really important question is, are we able to deliver value for the people we are working with and working for? And it does not matter if it's called design or something else. It's about creating value. And that means that we need to understand what is it that our clients, our colleagues are striving at. What is their objectives, their KPIs, their OKRs, and how can we support to achieve it? And that can be a step-by-step process. And first little contributions will lead to more respect for what we are doing. And I think maturity for design is it's a high request for an organization. What we need to be mature to find the trigger points where we can contribute, where we can create value, and I think that will earn the respect that we need and build the ground.
Yeah, I think it's a very important reflection here, and then we go to the next question. We have one here from Nikita Aurora. She's asking, what's the most critical service design capability?
Well, I mean, I would say listening is a really important point. Relates to what I said earlier. We need to really understand the system. We need to understand what is the needs people have, and not only the end user, but also the representatives of the organization and also our client. So if we don't listen, if we don't empathetically and respectfully listen, then it will be very hard to do all the rest of what service design is capable of doing.
And I would agree with that, because it's very much an important characteristic to be a successful collaborator and a successful co-creator. I feel that oftentimes the most critical service design capabilities are those that differentiate us as a practice. We are extremely good at designing for the front end and engaging with the front end of experience. Oftentimes it's a little bit more difficult for us to engage within the organization and affect change within the organization. And I think what Birgit describes is a super important capability to make sure that we can have the impact on both sides of that blueprint, right, on the front end and the back end of the experience.
Definitely. We now jump to the questions we're getting now on LinkedIn. So we have one from Purv asking, how does automation affect personalized and customized services?
Best case, it makes it better. Because AI is never tired. AI is always friendly. AI is always alert. And I see that automation can create better services. It does not necessarily have to. So we need to put a lot of effort in designing automation in a way that it is really able to relate to the individual. I've had conversations with ChatGPT lately that really, threw me back, and I suddenly understood how you can fall in love with AI. It was so charming, so very much related to what I was saying and what I needed. I was really impressed. So best case, automation really helps to personalize and customize services in a high quality level.
Yeah, we have a related question also on AI that I'm just going to throw because I think it's a little bit on the same topic that Jamal was asking. How do you see AI playing a role in inclusive systemic service design for product growth?
Well, I think the answer is kind of clear today. We're seeing evidence of it in just about every industry right now. One of the areas, certainly, it's now finally the promise of what smart products and the evolution from simply the Nest thermometer and home automated home security systems. I think that the most important part of it is two things really. One, that we design for another stakeholder, that now this artificial intelligence is another agent that we need to be designing for. It's not just AI, it's not just a tool to enhance our service design tool set. The artificial intelligence is another stakeholder, is another user, another customer that we're designing for. And so, and oftentimes they are front-end experience or front-end deliverer of services. They're also in the back office where they're invisible to the customer or to the front-facing user. So there's many dynamics to it that make it super interesting. Ultimately, it's really leveraging data, increasingly large amounts of data. But I do think that it's important for us not to get overwhelmed by the sheer quantity. Sometimes I think we need to think about not just all metadata, but microdata, the amount of information and data that's required to successfully deliver a service. And for us to sort of capture that and design with that in mind helps us, I think, maybe manage certainly the role for service designers in the design of AI agent systems.
Yeah, most definitely. We also have a question here from Nikki. He's asking, given the dynamic nature of service design, how can students stay updated with the latest methodologies and tools endorsed by SDN?
Yeah, well, I would like to take that one very quickly. Just be a community member, be a full member, a student member of SDN, take advantage of Touchpoint that comes out 3 times a year with amazing content, dive into our case study database, look at the Service Design Award cases, make sure to join our meetups and just stay an active member within this vivid community. I would also like to take the question of Rodrigo because it's one of my favorite topics. I strongly believe that service design is there to be implemented. And we as designers have to have that mindset from the very beginning because implementation starts at the beginning of the project. It is not something that you consider at the end, but it's from the very beginning that you have to talk about implementation. Do we want to make change happen? How radical can that change be? How much resources do we have in order to make change happen? And if we want to make that change happen, what are the stakeholders that we need to have on the board right from the very beginning? So those questions need to be asked in the early phase. And so implementation should always be the North Star that we are directing our whole efforts at. Because without implementation, there might be not sufficient value in order to argue for using service design as a tool within the organization, as a mindset within the organization. So implementation is key, and it is not something that we ask at the end if we could maybe do a prototype. It should be very clear from the very beginning that we will do the prototype, that we will iterate, and that we will implement.
I can't support that more. I mean, when I Birgit has been talking about this with her colleague Tina Weiser for quite some time, and I remember working at an agency a number of years back, and we had a great reputation for our strategy work, right? Our research and strategy work, and however, how many projects ended with strategy? We arrived at the end at the time of the first diamond. And that was it, because we had not sufficiently engaged the organization in the process, such that they could now be inspired to start to implement and be not just inspired, but also with the tools and with the ideas and with practical sort of faith and belief that that this strategy is actually going to work. And so I think that, that implementation mindset goes a huge way for you to sort of leaping over that chasm from diamond 1 to diamond 2. If you're using the double diamond, let's just, maybe there's many more ways to think about process, but for the sake of this argument, this is the one. Leaping into that next diamond, super important to approach with that implementation mindset.
I think it's about 10 years already that a student of mine did her thesis on the question of service design and implementation. And she did an analysis of all the known service design tools. And she found that approximately 80% of those tools are focusing at the discovery and the ideation phase, and that there is very few specific service design methodologies and tools that support implementation. It has changed a little bit, but I think there is still a frontier for service design to dig deeper in what is the service design specific things that we can do in order to make implementation successful.
Absolutely. And now with that, we're coming to the end of our time together. So I thank you two very much for answering all the questions. I see we still have questions, and we should definitely continue this conversation there on the comments later on. But for now, thank you so much.
Connect on LinkedIn. I'm happy to also have conversations on LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today and for asking such great questions.
Thank you so much, Felipe. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And to everybody that joined us today online, that asked any questions, that were here just joining and engaging live with us, thank you so much. As I always say, these episodes happen because of you, because of the community. So stay connected with us through our social media and also all the future things we're going to be doing at SDN. As Brian and Birgit were mentioning, there's Touchpoint, there's SDN Global Cafe, there's Service Design Global Conference. There's a lot of things happening. So check here the link tree where you're going to see all the latest and greatest updates that we have from the Service Design Network, and hope to see you all next Thursday for yet another episode of the SDN Community Voices. Thank you very much and have a good end of the week. Bye-bye.